The rust-colored dust of Mars swirled outside the dome of New Horizon Colony, painting the sky in shades of amber and crimson. 12-year-old Rosalie Winter pressed her hand against the transparent barrier, watching the storm rage beyond. Her reflection stared back, wild red curls framing a face dotted with freckles, green eyes that held both wisdom and loneliness. "Winter, get away from the barrier." Administrator Pierce's voice echoed through the corridor. "Storm's getting worse. All residents need to be in the inner sectors." Rosalie sighed but didn't move immediately. "Just another minute, sir. Please." "Now, young lady, don't make me call your guardian again." Guardian. The word made Rosalie's heart twist. Miss Thompson was kind enough, but she wasn't family. Nobody here really was, not since the accident in the hydroponics sector took her parents 2 years ago. A violent gust of wind rattled the dome, and something caught Rosalie's eye. Through the swirling dust, she spotted a dark shape moving. Something too large to be debris, too purposeful to be wind-driven. She squinted, pressing closer to the barrier despite Administrator Pierce's warning. The shape moved again, and this time she saw it clearly. A creature, unlike anything she'd ever seen. It was roughly the size of a small car, with iridescent scales that shifted colors like oil on water. But what made her gasp wasn't its appearance. It was the smaller form clutched in its mouth, which it gently deposited in a hollow before being swept away by the storm. Rosalie's heart raced. Without thinking, she ran to the nearest airlock, grabbing an emergency survival suit from the wall. She knew she was breaking at least a dozen colony rules, but something in her gut told her this was important. The suit sealed automatically as she stepped into the airlock. "Emergency protocol engaged," the computer announced. "Warning: dust storm intensity exceeds safety parameters." "Override," Rosalie commanded, using the emergency code she'd memorized from watching her mother work the airlocks. Authorization Winter 7 to 9-3. The outer door opened with a hiss, and the storm hit her like a physical wall. She activated her suit's magnetic boots and began making her way toward where she'd seen the creature. The wind howled around her, red dust reducing visibility to mere meters, but Rosalie pressed on. She found the hollow exactly where she'd seen it from the dome. There, partially protected from the storm, lay a small creature. It was barely the size of a house cat, with the same iridescent scales she'd seen on the larger one, but these were softer, almost translucent. Its eyes were closed, and its chest moved in shallow, rapid breaths. "You're hurt," Rosalie whispered, though the creature couldn't possibly hear her through the suit. She could see a deep gash along its side, bleeding a strange, silvery fluid. The young creature's eyes fluttered open at her approach. They were extraordinary, like swirling galaxies captured in glass. Instead of showing fear, it reached out with a small, clawed hand, touching her suit's faceplate. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. A warmth flooded Rosalie's mind, accompanied by images and feelings that weren't her own. Pain, fear, but also hope. The creature was communicating with her. "I'll help you," she promised, carefully gathering the small being in her arms. "But we'll have to keep you secret. The colony, they wouldn't understand." Getting back to the airlock was harder with her precious cargo, but Rosalie managed it. She smuggled the creature to her private quarters in the orphan sector, thankful that Miss Thompson believed in giving the children their privacy. As she cleaned the wound with medical supplies stolen from the infirmary, Rosalie's mind raced. She knew what this was. Everyone did. It was a drachnid, one of the mysterious creatures that had been spotted occasionally in Mars' wasteland. The colony feared them, believing them to be dangerous predators. But as she worked, the young drachnid maintained its telepathic connection with her, sharing fragments of thoughts and memories. She saw vast underground cities carved from crystal, felt the love of the parent who had hidden it from danger, understood that these creatures were far more than simple beasts. "You need a name," Rosalie said softly, as she finished bandaging the wound. The creature sent her an image of falling stars. "Starfall," she decided. "That's what I'll call you." As if in approval, Starfall chirped softly and curled closer to her. Through their mental link, Rosalie felt its trust and gratitude. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside Rosalie's room, something beautiful and dangerous was beginning. A friendship that would change two worlds forever. That night, as Rosalie lay in bed with Starfall curled up beside her, she wrote in her diary, "Mom, Dad, I wish you were here to help me. I think I just did something that would either make you very proud or very worried. Maybe both. But I couldn't leave it out there to die. And when it touched my mind, I felt less alone than I have since you left. I think this is important. I think this is right." Little did she know just how right she was, or how her act of compassion would ripple across two civilizations. As she drifted off to sleep, Starfall's gentle telepathic presence wrapped around her mind like a warm blanket, and for the first time in 2 years, Rosalie felt like she had found family again. The first week of hiding, Starfall tested every bit of Rosalie's ingenuity. The young drachnid grew stronger each day, its wound healing with remarkable speed, but keeping such an extraordinary creature secret in a tightly controlled colony proved challenging. Rosalie created a nest under her bed using spare blankets and pillows, teaching Starfall to hide there whenever someone approached. Through their telepathic bond, she learned more about her new friend species. The drachnids were not the mindless beasts the colonists feared, but rather a sophisticated civilization that had evolved in Mars' underground caverns long before humans arrived. Their mental connection grew stronger daily. Starfall shared memories of vast crystalline cities beneath the Martian surface, where drachnids lived in complex social groups. She saw through Starfall's memories how they used their color-changing scales to communicate emotions and stories, creating living light shows that danced through their underground halls. However, keeping Starfall fed proved particularly challenging. The young drachnid had a voracious appetite, particularly for the mineral-rich algae grown in the colony's hydroponics bays. Rosalie had to sneak into the lower levels during night cycles to gather enough to keep her friend satisfied. "You're going to eat us out of house and home," Rosalie whispered one night, watching Starfall devour another handful of stolen algae. The creature sent her a feeling of amused satisfaction, along with an image of even more algae. "Don't push your luck," she chuckled. But their secret couldn't last forever. The first close call came during a routine room inspection. Miss Thompson had barely knocked before entering, giving Rosalie barely enough time to mentally warn Starfall to hide. "Rosalie," Miss Thompson said, sniffing the air, "what's that unusual smell?" "Oh, I've been experimenting with some of the hydroponics samples for my science project," Rosalie answered quickly. It wasn't entirely a lie. She had been studying how Starfall's presence affected various plants she kept in her room. Ms. Thompson raised an eyebrow but didn't press further. After she left, Rosalie slumped against the door, heart racing. Through their bond, she felt Starfall's concern and sent back reassuring thoughts. Meanwhile, beyond the colony's walls, something was stirring. The adult drachnid who had hidden Starfall during the storm had not abandoned its young. Each night, it prowled the perimeter of the human settlement, searching for signs of its child. Other drachnids joined the search, their massive forms occasionally glimpsed by the colony's external cameras, causing growing concern among the administrators. "The beasts are getting bolder," Administrator Pierce announced during a colony-wide meeting. "We're increasing security measures. All external activities are suspended until further notice." Rosalie sat in the back of the meeting hall, feeling the weight of her secret. Through her bond with Starfall, she knew these weren't random attacks. They were searching for their lost child. But she also knew that revealing Starfall now, after hiding it for so long, would mean serious consequences. The situation grew more complicated when Starfall began to show signs of homesickness. The young drachnid shared dreams of its family, of the warm crystalline caves where it had been born. While their bond had grown incredibly strong, Rosalie realized she couldn't keep Starfall forever. It needed its own kind. One night, as they sat together in her room, Starfall shared a particularly vivid memory of its parent, the one who had hidden it during the storm. The emotion attached to the memory was so powerful it brought tears to Rosalie's eyes. "You miss them, don't you?" she whispered, stroking Starfall's iridescent scales. The creature pressed closer to her, sharing feelings of both love for her and longing for its family. Rosalie made a decision then, one that would change everything. "We need to find a way to contact your family," she said, "but we have to do it carefully. We need to show everyone that they don't need to be afraid." Through their bond, Starfall sent images of the crystal caves, along with a suggestion. The Drachnids had ways of communicating over long distances using crystalline formations that amplified their telepathic abilities. If they could find one of these crystals, they might be able to reach out to Starfall's family directly. The plan was dangerous. It would mean sneaking out of the colony again, this time with Starfall, to search for one of these crystal formations. But as Rosalie looked into her friend's galaxy-filled eyes, she knew it was their only choice. That night, as she prepared for their mission, Rosalie found herself thinking about her parents again. "Mom, Dad," she whispered to herself, "I know this is crazy, but I think it's what you would do. You always said that fear comes from not understanding, and that the bravest thing we can do is try to understand each other." Little did Rosalie know, her decision would set in motion events that would transform the relationship between humans and Drachnids forever. As she packed her emergency bag and prepared for their midnight expedition, storm clouds gathered on the Martian horizon, both literal and metaphorical, promising to make their task even more challenging than she imagined. The Martian night was eerily still as Rosalie and Starfall made their way across the rocky terrain. They had managed to slip out through a maintenance airlock during shift change, but Rosalie knew their absence would be discovered soon. Her suit's oxygen display showed 6 hours of breathable air. They had to find a crystal formation before then. Through their mental link, Starfall guided them toward a series of ridges where its kind often gathered. The young Drachnid scales flickered with nervous energy, creating patterns that danced across its body like aurora borealis. Despite the danger, Rosalie couldn't help but be mesmerized by the display. They had traveled barely 2 kilometers when Rosalie's suit radio crackled to life. "Emergency alert. All colonists report to Central Command. 2 juveniles missing from Sector 7. This is not a drill." Rosalie's heart skipped a beat. They had discovered her absence sooner than expected. Worse, the 2 juveniles meant someone else was out here too. Through her suit's helmet, she scanned the horizon, and there, in the distance, she spotted another figure in an environmental suit. "Thomas," she called over the emergency channel, recognizing the lanky frame of her fellow orphan ward. "What are you doing out here?" "I followed you," Thomas's voice came through, filled with a mixture of fear and awe as he approached and saw Starfall. "I knew you were hiding something, but this, Rosalie, do you know what you've done?" Before she could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. Massive shapes emerged from behind the ridges, adult Drachnids, their scales blazing with patterns of warning and protection. Starfall let out a high-pitched trill, its scales flashing in response. Through their bond, Rosalie felt a surge of joy and recognition. Among the adults was Starfall's parent, but she also felt fear. The adults were projecting intense hostility toward the humans who had, in their minds, kidnapped their young one. "Thomas, don't move," Rosalie said calmly, even as her heart raced. "They're not what we think they are. They're intelligent, they have a civilization, and they're just trying to protect their children, like we would." The colony's sirens began to wail in the distance. Searchlights pierced the darkness as emergency vehicles departed the dome. They had minutes at most, before the situation exploded into violence. Rosalie made a decision. She removed her helmet. "Rosalie, no," Thomas shouted. But she had to show trust to earn trust. The freezing Martian air bit at her face, but the atmosphere, while thin, was breathable thanks to generations of terraforming. She reached out and placed her hand on Starfall's head, allowing their mental connection to flow freely. Through Starfall, she projected her memories to the adult Drachnids, finding the injured young one, caring for it, growing to love it. She showed them her own loss, her understanding of their fear and pain. Most importantly, she showed them her hope for a future where both species could learn from each other. The largest drachnid, Starfall's parent, approached. Its scales shifted through complex patterns that Rosalie now recognized as thoughtful consideration. Through Starfall's telepathic amplification, she felt the adult's mind touch hers, ancient, powerful, and wise. Images flooded her consciousness. The drachnid's long history on Mars, their initial fear of human colonists, their gradual realization that these newcomers might bring both danger and opportunity. She saw their own cities, their art, their science, different from human achievements, but no less magnificent. The moment was shattered by the arrival of colony vehicles. Armed guards poured out, raising weapons toward the drachnids. Administrator Pierce's voice boomed over loudspeakers. "Step away from the children. Hostile creatures, withdraw immediately." "No," Rosalie shouted, standing between the humans and drachnids. "They're not hostile. They're trying to protect their child, just like you're trying to protect us. Please, just listen." Thomas, to her surprise, removed his helmet too and stood beside her. "She's right," he called out. "I've seen it. They're intelligent. They're like us." The adult drachnids could have attacked. They could have grabbed Starfall and fled. Instead, led by Starfall's parent, they began a display unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Their scales lit up in synchronized patterns, creating a breathtaking light show that told the story of their world, their hopes, and their willingness to try understanding these strange new neighbors. Through their mental link, Rosalie felt Starfall's joy and hope. The young drachnid had known, somehow, that she would help bridge the gap between their peoples. As humans and drachnids stood under the Martian sky, watching the living light show, something profound shifted in their relationship. Administrator Pierce lowered his weapon first. "Stand down," he ordered the guards. Then, to everyone's surprise, he removed his own helmet and stepped forward. "It seems," he said slowly, "we have a lot to learn about our neighbors." Starfall pressed against Rosalie's leg, sharing feelings of triumph and possibility. The young human girl who had lost her family had not only found a new friend, but had helped two civilizations find a new way forward. As the Martian moons rose over the ridge, casting their pale light over the historic scene, Rosalie realized that this wasn't an ending. It was just the beginning of a much bigger story. In the weeks following the historic first contact, New Horizon Colony transformed. The Central Dome, once a barrier against the Martian wilderness, became a meeting ground between two civilizations. The drachnids, led by Starfall's parent, whom the colonists named Aurora for its brilliant scale displays, helped establish a permanent telepathic communication center using their crystal technology. Rosalie found herself at the heart of it all. Her unique bond with Starfall made her an invaluable interpreter between species. Together, they helped humans and drachnids navigate the complex process of learning to trust and understand each other. The crystal resonance patterns are similar to our quantum communication arrays. Dr. Harrison, the colony's chief scientist, observed one morning as Aurora demonstrated their communication technology. Rosalie translated the drachnid's response through her link with Starfall. Their crystals were living organisms, grown and shaped over centuries. But not everyone welcomed this rapid change. A group of colonists, led by Security Chief Roland Blackwood, viewed the integration with suspicion. These creatures lived here for millennia without revealing themselves, Blackwood argued during a colony council meeting. Why show themselves now? What are they really after? Rosalie, sitting in on the meeting as a translator, felt Starfall's anxiety at the hostile undertones. The young drachnid, now a permanent resident of both the colony and the nearby crystal caves, shared images of its people's initial fear of human technology, their gradual realization that cooperation might ensure both species' survival. "They were afraid of us," Rosalie explained, "just as we were afraid of them. But Starfall showed them that fear doesn't have to define us. The council chambers fell silent as Aurora entered, its scales rippling with patterns that Rosalie had learned to recognize as diplomatic courtesy. Through their enhanced mental link, amplified by the crystals, Aurora shared a proposal. The Drachnids would help humans expand their colony using their knowledge of Martian geology and crystal technology. In return, they sought access to human agricultural techniques that could help them grow food in their underground cities. Administrator Pierce leaned forward, intrigued. This could revolutionize both our communities. But Blackwood wasn't finished. And what happens when they decide they want more than agriculture? Our weapons? Our ships? Aurora's scales flashed with patterns of confusion and concern. Through Rosalie, it conveyed a profound truth. The Drachnids had no interest in leaving Mars. This was their home, as it was becoming humanity's home. Their future lay in learning to share it. The tension in the room was broken by an unexpected source. Thomas, who had become another bridge between the species, rushed in. "The dust storm monitoring system," he gasped. "The crystal sensors the Drachnids helped us install. They're showing something massive approaching. Bigger than anything we've recorded." The council erupted into action. The colony's traditional sensors confirmed Thomas's report. A dust storm of unprecedented magnitude was forming, one that could potentially overwhelm even their reinforced domes. "Even with our technology, we cannot survive this alone," Aurora communicated through Rosalie. Its scales pulsed with determination. "But together, perhaps we can." As the council debated evacuation plans, Rosalie felt Starfall's mind touch hers with an idea. The young Drachnid shared visions of the deep crystal caves where its people had weathered countless storms, combined with images of the colony's power systems. "What if," Rosalie said slowly, "we combined our technologies? The Drachnid's caves could shelter us, and our power systems could help reinforce their crystal structures against the storm's pressure." The next hours were a flurry of activity. Humans and Drachnids worked side by side, running power cables into the crystal caves, setting up emergency shelters, and establishing communication relays. Blackwood and his followers watched with growing uncertainty as their supposed enemies worked tirelessly to protect both communities. As the storm's outer edges reached them, painting the sky an apocalyptic red, Rosalie stood with Starfall at the entrance to the caves. Through their bond, they shared a moment of perfect understanding. This crisis might be exactly what both their peoples needed, a chance to prove that together they were stronger than apart. "This is what my parents dreamed of," Rosalie whispered to her friend. "Different worlds coming together, making something new." Starfall's scales shimmed with affection and agreement as the first evacuees began arriving at the caves. The true test of their newfound alliance was about to begin. The storm that threatened to destroy everything instead became the catalyst for true unity. Deep within the crystal caves, humans and Drachnids huddled together as the Martian surface raged above. The combined power of human technology and Drachnid crystal networks created a protective barrier that thrummed with energy, holding strong against the storm's fury. Rosalie and Starfall moved through the crowded caves, their mental link serving as a bridge between scared colonists and their Drachnid hosts. Through their connection, they helped translate not just words but feelings, helping both species understand each other's fears and hopes. Even Security Chief Blackwood found his prejudices challenged as he watched Aurora organize its people to share their food stores with the humans. The Drachnid scales glowed with warm, welcoming patterns as it directed families to comfortable crystal chambers, each carefully heated using redirected power from the colony systems. "I never thought I'd say this," Blackwood admitted to Rosalie during a quiet moment, "but I was wrong about them. They've shown more humanity than I have." Through their bond, Rosalie felt Starfall's amusement at the irony of using humanity as a measure of compassion. The young Drachnid had learned enough about humans to appreciate their complex nature, capable of both great fear and remarkable love. As the storm reached its peak, the crystal caves revealed another secret. The combined energy of human power systems and Drachnid crystals created unexpected resonances, generating patterns of light that danced through the caves like auroras. Children from both species watched in wonder as their shadows played across walls that sparkled like stars. "Look," Thomas called out, pointing to where the crystal formations were beginning to grow and change shape. "They're responding to our presence." Dr. Harrison's instruments confirmed what the drachnids already knew. The crystals were adapting, creating new formations that incorporated elements of both technologies. It was as if the very planet was acknowledging and blessing the union of its two intelligent species. Through the storm's long hours, stories were shared. Drachnid elders, their scales shimmering with ancient patterns, transmitted tales of Mars's history through the crystal network. Human children taught their new friends games from Earth, their laughter echoing through the caves. Seeds of genuine friendship took root in that shared shelter. But it was Rosalie's and Starfall's story that resonated most deeply. The tale of an orphaned human girl and a lost alien child finding family in each other, breaking down barriers of fear through simple acts of love and trust. As the storm finally began to subside, Administrator Pierce and Aurora made a historic decision. The crystal caves would become part of an expanded colony, a shared space where both species could live and work together. The drachnids' knowledge of Mars's underground resources combined with human terraforming technology could transform their corner of Mars into something entirely new. "We're not just surviving anymore," Pierce announced to the assembled crowds. "Together, we're building a future neither of us could have imagined alone." 1 year later, Rosalie stood at the entrance of the new Crystal Dome, a magnificent structure that merged human architecture with drachnid crystal engineering. Beside her, Starfall had grown into a young adult, its scales now capable of creating complex light patterns that could communicate directly with humans, even without telepathic abilities. The Martian sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, its light refracted through the crystal dome into rainbow patterns that danced across the ground. Below, in the expanded colony, humans and drachnids moved together in harmony. Children of both species played in specially designed parks, while scientists from both civilizations worked side by side in new research facilities. "We did it," Rosalie whispered to her friend. Through their bond, which had only grown stronger with time, Starfall shared its own joy and pride. They had not just built a bridge between species, they had created a new kind of family, one that transcended biology and fear. In the colony's memorial garden, a new monument stood, a crystal sculpture of a human child and a young drachnid, their forms intertwined in an eternal dance of friendship. At its base, words in both human language and drachnid light patterns told their story, a reminder that love, trust, and understanding could overcome any barrier. As night fell on Mars, Rosalie looked up at the stars, thinking of Earth and the message their success here could send to all of humanity. Through their bond, Starfall shared a vision of the future, other colonies learning from their example, a Mars where two civilizations grew and evolved together, their differences becoming their greatest strength. "Mom, Dad," Rosalie whispered to the Martian sky, "I think we found something even more important than terraforming. We've found a way to transform hearts." The stars twinkled above as if in agreement, while below, in the crystal dome, the lights of human homes and drachnid scale patterns created a new constellation, a beacon of hope for all who looked upon it, proof that the greatest discoveries come not from conquering new worlds, but from learning to share them. The end.